Very good morning dear students, welcome back to the class. This video is for class 10th subject science chapter number 12 electricity and this is our lecture number 10. In lecture number 10 we are doing assignment solutions of assignment 1. So the first question of our assignment was, which of the following is or are true about the force? A. It is push or pull. B. It is an interaction that tends to accelerate an object having mass. C. It is the physical entity that changes either the direction or the speed or both of an object with the passage of time if unbalanced. D. On a non-inertial frame, either no external force is acting or more than one force are acting such that the net force is zero. E. A force can never act on a single object. And the most obvious answer to this question is that yes, all these options given in the question are true about the force. So the answer is all are true. Question number 2 is, what are the units of force? Remember, we are asking of the units of force. So among the given options we have to choose the units which are related to force. So first is dyne and urge. Joule and dyne is the second one. Third, watt and kilowatt. Fourth, dyne and Newton. Fifth, none of the above. Dyne and urge. Although dyne is related to force but urge is not. Next, joule and dyne. Dyne is related but joule is not. Watt and kilowatt are the units of power and not the force. Dyne and Newton. Dyne and Newton. Dear students, we have studied in our class 9th that Newton is the SI unit of force and dyne is one of the units of force. And how they are both related? That 10 raised to power 5 dynes is equal to 1 Newton. So this is how we can say that fourth option is correct. So the answer is option number D, that is dyne and Newton are the units of force. Question number 3 is, what are the units of work? Dyne and urge, joule and urge, watt and kilowatt, dyne and Newton, or none of the above. So we have seen that dyne is the unit of force. Work is also a kind of force, but work is a kind of energy as well. So we have to find the units among them which are related to energy, both. So the answer is joule and urge, because joule is the unit of energy and work both, and urge is also a unit of energy. So that is why option B is correct. So option B is correct, that these are the units of work. Question number 4 is, what are the units of power? So we have studied in our chapter number 12 electricity that units of power are watt and kilowatt. SI unit is watt, where kilowatt is the commercial unit of power. So the answer is watt and kilowatt. Question number 5 is, what is power? And the options given are total amount of work done, rate of doing work, work done or energy delivered per second, total amount of energy transferred, or none of the above. So the most obvious answer to this question is rate of doing work is called power. But as we are studying physics, so be in terms of physics only. So in terms of physics, power is the work done or the energy delivered per second. So the answer is work done or energy delivered per second is called power. Question number 6 is, what is permittivity? What is permittivity? So the question itself says this word, just focus on this word, permittivity. That means allowance or permission to what? To electric field, because this is the context of electric field that we are studying. We are studying about the charges, electricity. So it can be defined as the ability of a substance to store electrical energy in an electric field. That when a substance is placed in an electric field, then that substance is able to store the electrical energy. Then it is called the permittivity or the allowance to the electric field lines passing through it. Or you can take it as that when we are having electric field lines in the later question, you will get to know what are electric field lines and why I am representing them like this. But one important word that is called dielectrics. These are types of substances which are insulators in nature, but they exhibit conducting properties at certain given situations. So these are the substances which do not conduct electricity in normal conditions, but they conduct or they behave as a conducting material in some particular situations. So when in electric field we place a dielectric material, a substance which is dielectric in nature, and that substance is connected to a battery. So as every material is having positive and negative charges in it, so what will happen that this dielectric material which is in the electric field will develop the charges on its surface. That means the charges which were there in the material mixed, they were neutral at that time. But what will happen when the potential difference is applied to it? Then at one point plus sigma, that is positive surface charge density. That means we will have the charge separation. That one side positive charge will accumulate, other side negative charge will accumulate on the surface of the material. These charges are not going anywhere in the circuit, but these charges remain on the surface of the material, and this is how this material is storing the charge. So the ability of a substance to store electrical energy in the electric field, when electric field is allowed to pass through this material, then the charge separation or the charge accumulation on the surface occurs, and this is known as capacitance of the substance, capacitance to store the electrical energy, and denoted by C. So when potential difference V volt is applied and Q charge is stored in the material, it is called capacitance of the substance. So permittivity is the allowance of the magnetic field lines through a substance. We can have various definitions for permittivity. Like other way to understand this is that it is the measure of the resistance that is encountered when forming an electric field in a medium, because it's nature's rule that everybody or every element in the nature wants to exist in its original position. It resists any kind of change or movement in its surroundings. So that is why, suppose first in vacuum, here we have vacuum, and if we want to place or we want to form an electric field here, or we want to place a charge here, so first the vacuum will resist it. Or you can say that if a medium is there, I want to place a charge Q here. So charge Q plus Q will have its own electric field around it, but the medium will resist it. So permittivity is basically the measure of the resistance which is encountered when forming an electric field in a medium. It is denoted by a word, Greek word E, called epsilon. And when we talk about the permittivity of the free space, that is vacuum, then we call this permittivity as epsilon naught, which is the permittivity of free space or vacuum. But when we talk about the permittivity of a medium, then it's called epsilon only. Here we don't have a naught or not a small zero. So epsilon is the permittivity of the medium and epsilon naught is the permittivity of free space. And the ratio of permittivity of a medium to the permittivity of free space is called the relative permittivity of the medium, denoted by epsilon r, ER. One other way that we can have the answer for permittivity is that it tells the ratio of charge that is permitted on the surface of a conductor per unit electric field present in the vacuum. That we have seen that when we place a dielectric material in an electric field, then it develops charges on its surface. So this is a surface charge density basically. Here we have plus sigma, here minus sigma. Sigma is the surface charge density. So when we talk about the permittivity of free space, then it is the ratio of the surface charge density to the electric field which is present, or you can say the surface charge density per unit electric field, or the amount of charge which is permitted per unit electric field is called epsilon, or you can say permittivity of free space, denoted by epsilon naught, given by sigma upon E, where sigma is the surface charge density and E is the electric field. One more way that you will learn in the next question when we are doing the Coulomb's law, then you will understand that this epsilon is basically a dielectric constant. We talked about the dielectric materials. So this is a dielectric constant which is given by epsilon naught, and the ratio of permittivity of the medium to the ratio of permittivity of free space is called relative permittivity. It can also be called as the dielectric constant of a medium, or it can also be written as K. So this constant can be defined as the ratio of force of attraction or repulsion of 2 point charges separated by a distance in air. So this is about the air, to the force of attraction and repulsion of the same 2 point charges held at same distance apart in a medium. So the ratio of force of attraction or repulsion between two charge points in vacuum to the force of attraction or repulsion between the 2 point charges separated by a distance in a medium is called a dielectric constant. Question number 7 is, what is Coulomb's law? Explain with the example. And the answer is that Coulomb's law states that the force of interaction between any 2 point charges is directly proportional to the product of charges and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. So, although this law is not in your chapter in electricity, but why we are studying it? Because we have to understand that what kind of interactions are there between the charges. So, as we are studying charges and electricity, so we must know that what is the type of interaction that happens between the charges. So, now let me tell you the meaning of the point charges and what this law is all about. So, point charges. The first thing that we have to understand is a point charge. We know that the charges are there in the atmosphere. So point charge, when the linear size, or you can say the dimensions of charged bodies are much smaller as compared to the distance separating them, then these charged bodies are called point charges. Suppose we have a Q charge, or you can say plus Q charge, and here we have another plus Q charge, which is capital Q and small q. So here we have two charged particles, and let's say they are separated by a distance r. So when the size of the body is much smaller as compared to the distance separating them, then these charged bodies are called point charges, because their size is very small as compared to the distance between them. So physics says, or you can say Coulomb, after many experiments, he discovered that the type of interaction, that means there can be a force of attraction or repulsion between two charged bodies. Suppose here we have plus Q and plus Q. It's capital Q and Q. So here we will have repulsion, because positive charges will always repel positive charge. So here we will have repulsion. But if we have minus Q and plus Q charge, then these are unlike charges, and unlike charges always attract each other. So here the interaction will be attraction. So attraction and repulsion are taken as interactions between two charged objects. So Coulomb's law, according to Coulomb's law, the force denoted by the word F is directly proportional to the product of the charges. So let's say we are talking about Q and Q. So product of charge will be Q and capital Q. You can also have Q1, Q2. Let's say we are not taking it as plus Q or plus capital Q. So in this case, force will be directly proportional to Q1, Q2. That is the product of two charges. Remember, I am not taking the sign of the charge here. And inversely proportional to the square of the distance. So let's say these two charges are separated by a distance r. So force is directly proportional to the inverse of square of the distance between them. Or you can say force is inversely proportional to the square of distance between them and directly proportional to the product of the charges. So here we have two equations. So by combining these two equations, we can say force is directly proportional to Q1 Q2 by R square. Removing this proportionality, we have a constant K Q1 Q2 upon R square. And when this K is 1, then F is equal to Q1 Q2 upon R square, and this is our Coulomb's law. So according to Coulomb's law, the force of attraction between the two point charges is equal to the product of the charges on them and the inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Now, this is the final equation for Coulomb's law. One more thing we have to do is K, which is a constant of proportionality. You remember, we have written epsilon by epsilon naught. That is relative permittivity of the medium equal to K. So this K is the constant of proportionality here. K is also called electric force constant. Whereas epsilon naught is called absolute electrical permittivity. Of free space. And epsilon is the permittivity of the medium. And the ratio of the electrical permittivity of the medium to the free space, or the electrical permittivity of free space, is called. So when the charges are placed in the vacuum, then the force is K Q1 Q2 upon R square, whereas the value of K will be 1. And experimentally it was found that the value of K is equal to 9 into 10 raised to power 9 Newton meter square per Coulomb square. So this was all about the Coulomb's law, and we have explained it with the help of examples, taking Q1, Q2 as charges, point charges, and the separation between them as R meters. Question number 8 is, write Ohm's law. Is it always obeyed? Explain. And the answer to this question is that Ohm's law states that the electric current flowing in a conductor is directly proportional to the potential difference across the ends of the conductor, provided that the temperature and the other physical conditions of the conductor remains the same. So according to Ohm's law, we have electric current directly proportional to the potential difference. We can also write it as V, that is potential difference, directly proportional to the electric current. So when we remove this proportionality constant, we get a constant R. This is called resistance of the conductor. And here in Ohm's law, it has been stated that the physical conditions and the temperature should remain same. That means Ohm's law is an empirical law. That means it is based on some observations. So it is not always followed, because according to Ohm's law, when the temperature and the other physical conditions remains constant, then I and V, they should have a proportional relation with each other, and they should give a graph like this, a linear line where potential is increasing, so the same in the same proportion current is also increasing. But Ohm's law is not always followed because Ohm's law has been given for most of the metals. But we know about the metals they have lower temperature. But as the temperature raises, what happens to the metals? Their resistance increases. And because of this increase in resistance, now this resistance, which was earlier the ratio of voltage potential difference to the current, and that was a constant value, is now not constant. That means now there is no proportional relation between the potential difference of the circuit and the current flowing in the circuit. That means at higher temperatures, this should be the linear relationship between the potential and the current, but when the temperature raises, the resistance is also increasing. So accordingly, this linear line also deviates from its path this way, and now it is not longer obeying the Ohm's law. So at higher temperatures, even conductors are not obeying the Ohm's law. We have some other materials like semiconductors, for example diodes. These you will study in the higher classes, but they have a relation between current and potential this way. Because if current is directly proportional to the potential difference, that means when a positive potential is applied, some amount of current is flowing through the circuit. But when this potential is negative but of the same amount, then the current will also should also flow in the same amount but in opposite direction. But that is also not happening when we are reversing the terminals of the battery. That means when negative potential is there, the same amount of current is not flowing in the circuit in reverse order. So that is why here also in case of diodes, Ohm's law is not followed. Then we have some other materials like LEDs. For example, gallium arsenide. These are materials used for LED formation, LED light emitting diodes. So these devices also do not follow the Ohm's law. Here we have different values of current for different values of potential. So we know that Ohm's law is not obeyed at all the conditions for all the materials. Question number 9 is, what are electrostatic field lines? What is the minimum distance between them? So first we have to understand what is electrostatic field. So what electro means electrons, or you can say the charge. Static at rest. Field a space or a region. So electrostatic field is basically a space or a region around the static charges, or you can say it is the electric field around a charge which causes it to exert force of attraction or repulsion on other charges, and also to respond the force of attraction or repulsion by the other charges. So electric field lines are the means of representing electric field pictorially. That means if a charge is there, suppose we have a plus Q charge, then the electric field lines are basically the path of electric field, which can be straight or curved. So it will be something like this, because this is a region around the charge in which the other charge particle can exert or can experience some force of interaction. So electric field lines are a better way to visualize the electric field. Or you can also define electric field lines as the path straight or curved such that the tangent to it at any point gives the direction of electric field at that point. So electric field lines can be straight or curved depending upon the type of charges provided in the field. We can also simply say that it is the path along which a unit positive charge actually moves in electrostatic field. So in case of a positive point charge, let's say it is plus Q, the electric field lines will be radially outward. And the number of field lines, they are, as it has been asked in the question, that what is the meaning of the difference between the electric field lines, distance between the electric field lines. So the distance between electric field lines can be different at different places. For example, when they originate from the charged particle, the distance between them is less. But as the electric field lines are originating from the same charge, as they move ahead in the space, they will feel a force of repulsion. Now they have the space is available, so they will repel each other and the space between them will increase, or the distance between them will increase. So this is how a positive charge creates a region around it, or electric field around it. Whereas in case of a negative charge, point charge, electric field lines are always inward, radially inward. That means they are having a 90-degree angle to the surface of the point charge object, or they are at tangent. So this is how the electric field lines, they enter into the negative charge. Now why I'm saying negative, in case of negative charge they are entering, in case of positive charge they are going out, because the basic reason is that in a material we are having electrons and protons and neutrons, but as these are bound to the nucleus and only electron is free, so when a point charge, or when you can say when an object is charged, so what it will be having? It will be having electrons as the charged particles only. But when the electrons are transferred from one body to another body, that means charge is being transferred, and that body which is transferring the charge becomes positively charged, and the body which is absorbing or which is getting that electric charge becomes negatively charged because of the excess of the electrons. So these two kind of charges, positive charge and negative charges, are there. So when we talk about the electric field line, so we say that when a unit positive electric field moves, so that path that it takes is called electric field line, which is an imaginary line that can be straight or curved. So when we talk about the interaction between two kinds of charges, so first let's say we have plus Q and plus Q1 and plus Q2. So both are positively charged particles. So positively charged particles, they always repel each other. So what will happen? As this is a positive charged particle, so the electric field lines will go out of it. But as the interaction between them will be repulsive, so what will happen? the electric field lines will go in this direction as they have to repel it. And the same will happen to this. So this is how two positive charges of equal amount, because these are equal in magnitude, and that is why they are able to repel each other in equal amounts. But if we are having a unit positive charge and a unit negative charge, Q1, Q2, then what will happen? Because there should be a force of attraction between these two charges, and the electric field lines will go this way. Because from positive point charge, electric field lines originate and they end up in the negative charge. And we are talking about the tangent to the line gives the direction of electric field. That means if we draw a tangent to this line at any point, then this should give a direction that electric field lines, from this sign we can understand that electric field lines are going from positive Q1 charge to Q2 charge, negative Q2 charge. Even if we draw a tangent here, then also it is giving us the direction of electric field, and the same way it will do it here. So at any line, it can be straight or curved. So when we draw a tangent to it, then it provides the direction of electric field. One more point, that when Q1 and Q2 are equal in magnitude, so they will put an equal force of repulsion between each other, on each other. So the electric field lines will be repelled with the equal forces. But when either of them is having a higher magnitude, then the effect of repulsion of that force or that charge will be higher on other. For example, here you can see Q1 seems to be greater than Q2. Although they are positive in nature, but still more effort is, or more repulsion is applied by Q1 on Q2. So the repulsion is more on Q2 because of Q1. Electric field lines can also be uniform, that at infinite distances from, because we have a plus Q charge here and a minus Q charge here, or Q1, Q2, positive and negative two charges are there, and they are separated from a very long distance. So when Q1 charge is giving out the electric field lines, or the electric field lines originating from Q1 are reaching to Q2, and the distance is very large, then almost equal distance is there in between the electric field lines. So that time electric field is uniform. In case of point charges, we have almost non-uniform electric field, and the electric field is higher where the number of electric field lines is more. Suppose here we have, just at the point of interaction we have more number of electric field lines, so here the electric field will be very high as compared to this region. So number of electric field line is directly proportional to the strength of electric field. But in case of a uniform magnetic field, a uniform electric field, suppose we have a strip of charge or a material which is having a long surface area. So now the electric field provided with the help of this charge will be this way if it is positive. So remember, the electric field lines, they originate from the positive charges, end up in a negative charge. The strength of the electric field lines is directly proportional to the number of electric field lines. And the distance, when we talk about the uniform electric field, then the distance between the electric field lines is almost the same at all the points, whereas in case of non-uniform electric field lines, the distance varies between the electric field lines going from the positive to negative terminal. Question number 10 is, in the representation of an electrostatic field, what does the difference in the distance between the field line mean? So we can say that in the previous question we have studied about the electric field lines, and we have studied about the various types of electric field lines originating from the positive to negative charge. So here the difference in the distances tells us that how much is the force of repulsion increasing or force of interaction increasing between the electric field lines, because in the case of electric field lines originating from the positive charge, they will go or they will extend their distance between the electric field lines originating from the same charge, because they will repel each other. While in case of the electric field lines going into a negative charge, the interaction between the force of electric field lines will increase as there is a force of attraction between them. Question number 11 is, what is electric charge? So we know electric charge is a physical property of a matter or substance which causes it to experience an electric force when placed near or other substances. That means when a material which is having electric charge on it is placed in the field of some other substance, then it will exert force on that as well, and it will also experience a force, electrical force, when it is placed in the field of some other substance. Or we can also say that electric field is a fundamental property possessed by the material object that makes it possible for them to exert electrical force and to respond the electrical force applied by that other material. Question number 12 is, what are negative and positive charges? Why they are named so? And the answer to the question is that we know that substances consist of atoms and each atom is electrically neutral. So net electric charge on each atom is 0. In fact, atom consists of protons and electrons in equal numbers, and the net charge becomes 0. The positive charged protons are tightly bound to the nucleus of the atom, whereas the negative charges revolve around the nucleus in different orbits. These electrons, which are in outermost orbit, are loosely bound to the nucleus as compared to the electrons in the inner orbit. So when the substance is rubbed with another material or placed in the contact of other material, the loosely bound electrons are removed from their atoms, and these electrons are transferred to the material with which the substance is rubbed. Now, the atom of the substance losing the electron is not having equal number of electrons and protons. Now, the number of protons are more as compared to electrons. That means these atoms have more protons than electrons, and hence the atoms losing the electrons have a positive, net positive charge, On the other hand, the material to which the free electrons are transferred has a net negative charge. So that is why it is called that the charges are of two types, and one is giving the electrons, that means it is becoming positive, as the negative charge, which is electron, is deteriorating, while the other material is gaining that negative charge, so it is becoming more negative. So that is why two types of charges are called positive and negative. Question number 13 is, what is electric current? So this we have studied in our chapter number 12, and the answer to this question is that electric current is the rate of flow of net charges across a plane. The number of net charges crossing a plane in one direction in 1 second determines the quantity of current, and the unit to measure the current is ampere, and the instrument which is used to measure the current is known as ammeter. Question number 14 is, can charges be created or destroyed? So the answer to this question is that no. Charges of an isolated system, remember, isolated system can neither be created nor be destroyed, because we know that in an isolated system the number of charges will remain the same. Only the redistribution is occurring in an isolated system, because the charges are conserved in nature. They get redistributed. Conservation means the total charge of an isolated system will be same, and the charges get redistributed due to the interaction between the types of charges. So only redistribution happens and not the destruction or creation of any charge. But this was the thing about the isolated system. But when we talk about the individual charged particles, so yes, we can create charged particles as well as we can destroy charge on a material. Then question number 15 is, find out the scalar and the vector quantities of the following. Out of the following, so first is mass, second is electrostatic field, third is nuclear force, fourth light intensity, and fifth is weight. Sixth is electrical potential. So let us see the answers. Mass. We know that mass is a scalar quantity because it is having only magnitude and no direction. Second is electrostatic force. So as the name itself is telling us that it is a kind of force between the static charges. We know that when the charges are placed between, having a distance between them, then they exert an electric force on each other, and that force is having a direction. That electric field, that electrostatic force, or you can say electric field, is having a direction from positive charge towards the negative charge. So it is having the magnitude and direction as well, so it is a vector quantity. The nuclear force, which is holding the protons and neutrons together, and the protons, they are holding the electrons in the orbits, because the positive charge and negative charge, that is electron, they attract each other, and because of the force of attraction between them, they are there in the atom. So this nuclear force is very strong, but as the distance is increased, that means as we go away from the nucleus of the atom, the nuclear force decreases exponentially. So nuclear force is also a vector quantity, although it is having a very small region. Then fourth is light intensity. So light is also a kind of energy. So the amount of light passing through a unit area will be light intensity, and as this is just the number of line, or you can say the light energy, or you can say the number of or the amount of light which is passing through a unit area. So this is a scalar quantity as it is not having the directions along with it. Then we have weight. So weight, we know that weight is the product of mass into acceleration due to gravity. So gravity is having a particular direction, that it pulls every object towards the center of the earth. So in case of weight, weight is a vector quantity. Then we have electric potential. So in the chapter electric current, we have seen that electric potential is the difference, or you can say electric potential is the ability of any electric field to carry a unit positive charge from infinity to a particular point in the electric field. So that is also magnitude, not the direction. So that is why electric potential is the scalar quantity. So this is the last question of the assignment, and most of the students, they have done the correct answers. But here the motive of discussing all these questions was not to make you stressed because of the higher level questions. It was that you should understand, or you should be introduced to the things that you have to study in future, and you have to make a mind for them as well. So for a better understanding of yours for the newer concept that you are going to study in higher classes, the assignment was conducted. So along with this assignment, you will be getting you have been given assignment number 2 as well. So that we are going to discuss tomorrow. So till then, take care and goodbye.